is the old ship of Zion, is the old ship of Zion. Lord, is the old, I know it is, ship of Zion. Get on board. Lord, if you want to see Jesus, get on. When I think about how good God been to me, and when I look back over my life and see where God has brought me from, I don't have no doubt in my mind tonight. King Jesus is my captain. King Jesus. How many know he's your captain tonight? Lord, I know he's my captain.
Hi, Saints. My name is Grace. I'm a descendant of my parents, Adam and Eve. Because of my parents' sin entered the world. God later destroyed the whole world with a great flood. Yes, God destroyed the world, with the exception of Noah and his family. Needless to say, if you trace back my African heritage, you'll find that Ham had a son named Canaan. So many of my ancestors settled near the equator, northern, eastern Africa, Asia, and Egypt. Our rival tribes sold us to the Europeans. Now we are here, not by choice, but by providence. Yes, we are here because God allowed it. Here's a little background. The arrival of the first captives to the Jamestown colony in 1619, often seen as the beginning of slavery in America. But enslaved Africans arrived in North America as early as the 1500s. The old ship of Zion has sailed for many years since we as a people have found ourselves in America. Every generation has given us added value with our gifts, our talents, and many have lost their lives for our freedom. Even though we understand the struggle, we also know true freedom comes from knowing we could have never made it without the Lord. This old ship of Zion is a great ship, a powerful ship, because it has carried our precious souls throughout history. As Zion was a citadel that was in the center of Jerusalem, which explains why it means highest point. Today is known in biblical terms as the promised land. The struggle and suffering was long and hard. Our early years included many slave laws, mistreatment, revolts, and misery. But thanks be to God, trouble doesn't last always.
I'm Crispus Attucks. I was one of the first patriots to give my life in the struggle for American independence. I was born in Massachusetts in 1723. I escaped from my slave owner, William Brown, at the age of 27. I then joined a crew of a boat sailing from Boston Harbor. I was a sailor and a whaler. I then became a leader of Patriot Revolutionaries on the night of March 5th.
Let's now meet abolitionists who worked to end slavery. Abolitionists like David Walker, William Lloyd Garrison, and John Brown, who decided it was time to free the slaves by force. Oh, look, I see a courageous traveler. The state law of 1827 freed a few slaves in New York. One of them was young Isabella.
My name is Isabella. I decided to spend the rest of my life working to free other slaves. I knew my freedom was a gift from God, whom I love. I felt so tall within. I felt as if the power of the nation was with me. So I've given myself a new name. I'm Sojourner Truth. On foot, I went place to place to tell others how wrong slavery was. Even though I was not taught to read or write, I knew how to speak from my heart. Sometimes I would speak to thousands at a time. Because of my many powerful speeches, I became well known and invited by President Lincoln to the White House. Here I spoke at the meeting for the rights of all people. I made many enemies. I was beaten and stoned more than once. Yet I did not stop. I told God's truth everywhere I went. God's truth must march on. I got my ticket in my hand and the Lord in my heart.
I'm aboard the ship, Sojourner Truth. Here comes the best known abolitionist, Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey, the son of the slave Harriet Bailey. He became the slave of Thomas Auld.
I'm Frederick. Miss Auld taught me to read. When her husband found out, he made her stop. Most slave owners thought it was dangerous to teach slaves to read or write. However, I learned just enough to teach myself. So I learned that slavery was wrong and I ran away. I was caught the first time, but I got away in 1838 at 21 years of age and changed my name when I reached Massachusetts to Douglas. 3 years later, I made a speech at an abolitionist meeting. It was received well, so I gave many more speeches and wrote a book called Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. I later moved to England and spoke for human rights, women's rights, and worked for world peace. People in New England bought my freedom and sent me home with $2,000 to get started again. I settled in Rochester, New York to start a newspaper called the North Star. My newspaper would help to make my people free. People read my paper all over the North. I later changed the name of my paper to Frederick Douglass Paper. I spoke and wrote for freedom and equal rights for all. I helped slaves on their way to Canada. I planned and led sit-ins and freedom rides on New England trains. I raised Black troops for the Northern armies. My 2 sons were among the soldiers. My friends were William Lloyd Garrison and John Brown. I advised Abraham Lincoln. I became a government official in Washington, D.C., and I ministered to Haiti. Well, it's time for me to take my departure. By the Lord's grace, I hope to see you on the other side.
My name is Booker Teleferro Washington. I was an American educator, author, orientator, and advisor to most and multiple presidents of the United States. It was between 1890 and 1915. I was the dominant leader of the African American community and of contemporary black elites. I became the first principal of Tuskegee Institute in Tuskegee, Alabama on July 4th. Tuskegee became the leading vocational training institution of African Americans until my demise in 1915.
My name is Harriet Tubman. I was an American abolitionist and political activist. Born into slavery, I escaped and later on made some 13 missions to rescue approximately, I'd say 70 enslaved people, including family and my friends, using the network of anti-slavery activists and safe houses known as the Underground Railroad. Also, I led the Union Army in the raid at Combahee Ferry that freed more than 700 people from slavery. Call me the conductor on the Underground Railroad, the Moses of my people.
All aboard? Wait, no, it can't be. Yes, it is. It's true. There were many more stories with names not named in our history books who fought the good fight and gave their hearts to Jesus, whose names are included in the Lamb's Book of Life. And if we belong to God, we're sure to meet all of them on the other side. Did you know that there were 49 Black Americans known to have been lynched in 1882? We also mourn the deaths of 53 more Black Americans known to have been lynched in 1883. And then the Civil War. Oh, Lord.